Well, this is little Claire. She's 3 months old and she's one of a number of grandchildren that I've got. She's the youngest, and she might be all right for us. Let's just see. Just had a feed, had a change. So this session's about safety, protection, and our responsibility with children. And I'm glad that Claire's paid me a little visit, because I want her to be sitting here just to talk briefly about this and introduce this session. You know, I often hear people having a bit of a whinge that you know, we put so much energy into compliance and you know, child working with children cards and things like that, and we have to do all sorts of risk assessments and things like that when we're working with children. And you know, I know the feeling. I remember the days when, you know, we didn't think about that at all. We used to do dangerous things, actually, and in my experience, thankfully, we all survived, but that's not always the case. And these days we have much stronger responsibility. Well, we've always got the same responsibility, but there's stronger expectations from our community, from society, on us, relating to safety and the care and the protection of children. And I actually think it's a good thing. In my men's group in the church I go to, we had to do a risk assessment just for our group the other day, as part of what, you know, part of the church's safety policy. And we laughed and we carried on, and we now all wear headlamps and, you know, make sure we help each other up and down the stairs just for a joke. But in reality, these sorts of things are really important, particularly when it comes to really vulnerable children. And here's a really vulnerable one, little Claire. When a parent hands their child over to us in a ministry setting, in any setting, we take on a huge responsibility. That parent, the family of that child, the community around that child, and the community at large in Australia, in any country, they expect us to take absolute care to look after this what is a vulnerable child, whether it's a tiny baby like this one, or whether it's an older child. We have a huge responsibility. We have a responsibility to the families, to our community, to our society. We have a responsibility to God, because God wants us to be stewards of lives like this, and that's a critical understanding, I think, that we would want you to have as you look at this particular topic in the course. We want you to go through the process of getting a working with children card, whatever's appropriate in your state. We want you to look at your own churches or the organisation that you're connected with, their own policies around child protection and safety, and really get to know them. We want you to think deeply about it, and we want you to be deeply committed to this whole area of child protection and safety. It's really important. And so as you dive into this, you know, the temptation is always going to be there to have a bit of a whinge about the amount of work and what's involved. You'll have people saying it to you a lot, but underneath that, remember that this is really critically important. And one last thing to say is that, you know, recently there's been the Royal Commission into institutional response to or institutional child sex abuse, and the Royal Commission has come out with some incredibly important suggestions and recommendations for how churches and mission groups ought to set up their own policies and their procedures. We need to take note of them. We have a responsibility to our community to really take note of those recommendations, and it'll be people like you who will work them out in your ministry practice. It's harrowing reading and listening when you look at the history and the story of the terrible things that have happened within the church over decades and much longer than decades in our community. And we have a responsibility to each other, we have a responsibility to our community that we will move into the future with utmost care and with systems in place and with, more than anything, a deep commitment in place that we will go in a positive direction. That's just another really important reason for you to take this all seriously. I think Claire's nearly ready for a sleep. She's a real cuddler, 3 months old, starting to smile whenever she sees us and doing what a normal 3-month-old should be doing. And I want her to continue down that track of growing and developing as a dear little child, dear little girl. And I want that for every child, and I'm sure you want that for every child. So yeah, commit yourself to this first week and the tasks in this first week, and let's make sure we have clear in our mind as we go into this course what your responsibilities, your obligations are in relation to protecting children as you move forward.